Hello, good evening, everyone. This is so exciting. I am here. My name is Madison Carter. I'll be your host for this evening, and I am so excited to welcome you to Voices of T1D. This is our final session of the 2025 Breakthrough T1D Virtual Community Summit series, and it has been such an incredible year. I hope you've tuned into all of our previous sessions. I'm so excited to be able to host tonight's discussions for our last one. And you know that it's such a special one because it is National Diabetes Awareness Month. Some of you may know me from the past sessions. I typically am here hosting your advocacy update, but tonight I'm going to take you through the whole conversation. This program, if you don't know about it, the Community Summit offers education, connection, and inspiration to really help you and your loved ones live well with T1D. So in addition to this virtual education, Breakthrough T1D chapters, as you know, I hope you know this, our chapters host over 50 in-person community summits across the country in your part of the country throughout the year. So visit the link that you see right here on your screen to find an in-person community summit to really get in touch with that community near you. You'll see a link here. It is breakthrought1d.org/T1D community, T1D-community/summits. So as you may have heard me mention at the top of the program, November is National Diabetes Awareness Month. You'll see me and all of our guests tonight wearing our blue. You might have heard this called NDAM. And our theme for this year, it's amazing. And it really truly speaks to something we all care about, awareness. The theme is CT1D. It's a theme that creates an understanding of the reality of living with T1D, but it's also celebrating the resilient people who face it, and it's reinforcing the impact of Breakthrough T1D's mission. So I don't know if you all were around, if you follow all of our social channels. I know you had to have seen it, maybe on the Today Show, maybe all over the internet, or maybe when you were searching links because it was sold out everywhere, that Barbie with T1D. It started a huge conversation this summer. My Barbie is up here on my shelf in her box. She will never leave that box, and I won't be passing her along to my daughter because we're going to have a cure by the time I have a daughter. So that is my hope. And this conversation that Barbie started over the summer, it is still going on. We know that being seen with this, it's hard. Sometimes it feels like an invisible condition. So having a Barbie that looks like us, that's doing cool things the way we all do, it's so powerful and so affirming. So tonight we are going to see T1D through the eyes of two people who have lived as caregivers, and one of whom is now on her own T1D journey. But before we get started, I want to extend a special thank you to our national industry partners. Their support helps make the Community Summit program possible. And a lot of our options that are here to help care for you, they're available to help ease the burden of living with T1D daily. Now, so you know, Breakthrough T1D does not endorse any specific product or brand, but we do want to encourage you to visit breakthrought1d.org to learn more about all the options that are available to you and your family to help manage this illness. And we also encourage you to speak with your healthcare provider, talk about all the options and a treatment plan that works best for you, your lifestyle, or your loved ones. Okay, so this is the part where you usually see me pop in, but I'm just going to keep rolling through an advocacy update because it's the part that gets me most excited, and tonight is a huge one. Your engagement and advocacy, it's more important than ever to ensure the needs of the T1D community are heard in all of the halls of power, right? So you can become an advocate today by scanning the QR code that you see here on the slide, or you can visit breakthrought1d.org/join. You'll see it pop up on your screen here. There it is. In doing this, you're going to receive a time-sensitive updates and activations. That's when we need you to get out there and get going to share the impacts of T1D with our national decision makers, the ones that represent you in your community. Tonight, this is the part where I said it's big. We are expecting Congress to pass legislation that's going to reopen the government, but more importantly to this community, ensure the critical type 1 diabetes research is going to continue by funding the special diabetes program. You've heard me talk about this throughout the year. You've seen it all over our accounts, SDP. This should fund it through January 30th. Since the 90s, when it was established, the SDP has had significant advances across all areas of our mission, including automated insulin delivery systems, insulin pumps, the first therapy to delay the onset of T1D. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later, and addressing complications like diabetic retinopathy, many more advancements that we see and we use today. So keep an eye out for updates on the extension of the SDP on our social media. If you scan that QR code that's up here on your screen, you'll get time-sensitive notifications, as I said. And of course, please say thank you to Congress for passing this bill. The coming weeks, we're going to need your help again. to continue building strong bipartisan support for longer term funding of this program beyond that January 30th deadline. We'll let you know when it's time. Again, scan that QR code to get those updates. All right. Every message makes a difference, so we're so appreciative for you to take action. It's so easy to stay in the loop by scanning the QR code. One more time, scan the QR code. We're going to leave it up here on the screen just so you have enough time to pause, or you can go back in our stream later to get this link and join us. All right. I'm ready to jump into this night's event because I know you're tired of hearing my voice and I want to let you talk to somebody else who has an incredible story to tell. Chris Dunn, mom of 4, 2 of whom live with T1D. Chris has been involved with Breakthrough T1D since her family did their first Walk to Cure Diabetes in 2007 and has been on the staff team in our Nebraska chapter, where she currently serves as chapter senior director. She's been doing that since 2018. So she has been deeply involved, Chris, and here to share her experience with screening and talk about the early detection of T1D. Chris, first of all, thank you for your involvement with Breakthrough T1D, and thank you so much for being here tonight with us.
Thank you, Madison. It's great to meet you.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to jump right into your story. So to start, can you tell us a little bit more? We talked a little bit about screening, how some of this was funded through the SEP. So can you tell us about your first experience with this early screening? I think it was in March.
So as you mentioned, I have 4 children, 2 of whom are living with type 1 diabetes. When my son was diagnosed at the age of 2, he was in diabetic ketoacidosis. And after that experience, that's not something we ever wanted to live through again with any of our other children. So our family has been deeply invested in screening since 2011. We've been doing this a long time. I get my kids screened who don't have T1D about every 3 years. And when we started screening in 2011, I screened myself and I screened negative. And honestly, my understanding at the time had been, if you screen negative as an adult, you're good. You're home free. You don't need to worry about anything. So this past spring, my daughter, Mary Kate, was due to be rescreened. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to screen with her. Not honestly because I thought there was a concern with my health, but because I thought this is a great opportunity for me to take a photo of Mary Kate and I participating in the screening. I can post it on LinkedIn, post it on Facebook, how important screening is and early detection, as well as the fact I could be promoting that type 1 diabetes does not discriminate with age. It can happen to infants and it can happen to adults of any age. So I really wanted to make sure that people understand that more than 50% of new diagnoses are adults. So Mary Kate and I participated in the screening. This time we went through the ASK trial. We had previously also screened through TrialNet, so we've done it all. And took our picture, that picture that I was wanting, and I did my social media post to promote. So you can imagine my shock a couple weeks later when I was actually at my desk at work and received a phone call and learned that I was positive for 4 out of 4 of the autoantibodies. I have a standing desk at work. I literally just had to sit down and just had this surreal moment of thinking about that I had been a T1D mom for almost 20 years. And now suddenly I was the patient. So I was grateful that we caught it early, before symptoms, before DKA, and while I had the chance to intervene in the process.
You know, what you mentioned a little bit earlier, it's a huge reason why we changed our name to Breakthrough T1D over this past year, right? We used to be JDRF, juvenile diabetes, but as you mentioned, more than 50% of diagnoses are adults now. So that's huge. And it sounds like you really caught this at just the right time. And I think we have a little bit of your story from when you were undergoing that TZIL journey over the summer. So let's check this video out.
It was a pretty surreal moment just to hear, that I was positive for all 4 of the autoantibodies. After that first appointment, we knew that I was in fact in stage 2, which is the stage for which TZIL is FDA approved.
Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. We talk about the progression of type 1 diabetes in stages. We define stage 1 as the presence of 2 of those autoantibodies. That means the immune reaction has started and you're beginning to lose some of your functional insulin-producing beta cells. Stage 2 is defined as individuals that have those two autoantibodies, but also start to exhibit abnormal blood sugar levels. This means the destruction of those beta cells has progressed to a point your body's having a little trouble keeping up with its glucose needs. Stage 3 is when symptoms appear or when diagnosis happens. This means that your body is no longer producing enough insulin to meet your needs, and oftentimes insulin therapy is necessary. Now, Tzield is a therapy that directly acts on the T cells, those cells that actually go and attack the insulin-producing beta cells. This stops that attack and stops the progression of type 1 diabetes and ultimately delays the time to diagnosis.
If you screen ahead of time for the autoantibodies, you can get ahead of it, get prepared. My hope is that I'm a good receiver of this medication and we can delay my progression to stage 3.
The approval of Tzield is an incredible advancement for the field and is most certainly a breakthrough T1D success story. And this is just the beginning. Tzield is an incredible advancement, but it's just a first step in our goal of bringing disease-modifying therapies to all individuals at all stages. Imagine a world where we can extend the time people respond from 2 years to 5 years to 10 years, or halt progression entirely. That's the work that Breakthrough T1D continues to fund, to discover and develop new interventions and new ways of rebalancing the immune system, and ultimately working toward our goal of a world without type 1 diabetes.
Somebody had asked me what my overwhelming emotion was at that point. And honestly, it's gratitude. Gratitude towards people that trusted Breakthrough T1D to bring these types of therapies to life. And let us bring this as a possibility to people like me.
It is so incredible just to see what all of the funding from this program has done talking about this program. And Chris, you've spent so much time in the T1D world, but has anything been surprising to you now being on your own journey with T1D and having the therapy?
Absolutely. It's actually been pretty humbling. So when the nurse first called to give me my autoantibody results, and she asked me right away, had I heard of Tzield? Is this something I was interested in? And as having been in this space for a long time, I was very familiar with Tzield and was very interested. So right away, we started scheduling out that first staging appointment to come out and see if I was a qualifier for this medication. And she mentioned at this first visit, part of that visit would be education. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think that I may have rolled my eyes thinking, okay, I've been a T1D mom for almost 20 years. Okay, we're going to do some education. But honestly, I have learned a lot because what I knew was stage 3 and stage 4 T1D. I had never lived stage 2 T1D prior to this. And living in stage 2 really feels like you're living between two worlds. I don't have full onset stage 3 T1D where I need insulin therapy, but my world isn't just carefree either. The mental load has kind of caught me off guard. Every choice I make feels deliberate. I'm very cautious about everything that I eat and drink. I wear a CGM so that I can see how I react to different foods. And I really do try to keep my blood sugar managed more closely like a type 2 patient because I'm not on insulin, but I'm trying to manage what my blood sugar is doing. But I feel a lot of hope. When my kids were diagnosed, there was no disease modifying options. And now here we are and I get to take advantage of this one. So it's an exciting time.
It absolutely is exciting. And I mean, you may know what to expect, but I like what you said, how you said it's humbling because we always say we have such an important role as a caretaker, but being the patient, it's a different experience. So yeah, I find you between both worlds. That has to be really interesting. I want to say, what does monitoring look like? So now you have this testing, you've done the education. So you mentioned, doing the CGM, but then are you going to continue to get tested? Like how do you know when you progress to that next stage?
Yeah, so I actually live in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm coming to you tonight from Denver, Colorado, because my first Tzield follow-up appointment is this week here at the Barbara Davis Center, and my appointment is on World Diabetes Day, so I'm hopeful that that means good karma that this first checkup happens to fall on World Diabetes Day. But my understanding is that I'll have these regular labs every few months where we'll look at my A1C, my oral glucose tolerance test, review my CGM. And honestly, since this Friday is my first appointment, there may be additional things that I'm not aware of that I'll learn about at this appointment.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I'm just using, low intensity exercise, mindful eating to help me manage my dysglycemia. And my goal is just to preserve my beta cell function as long as we can. But having lived in this space for almost 20 years, any delay that I get out of this medication is a win for me. And I'm just thankful that I have a plan, I have a team, and that I'm living proactively and not reactively to this diagnosis.
Incredible. And speaking of living proactively, this is my last question for you. And then we're going to open up. I'm looking at the comment section. So if you have any questions for Chris about her therapy or anything, please feel free to drop them in. I'll leave some time for the chat questions. But for you, Chris, my last question is, what would you say to other parents of T1Ds who are hearing this, they're starting to screen, or they may have started to see some of those like borderline A1Cs, elevated BGs, and maybe they're wondering if they could be at risk of developing? What would you say to those parents?
I just feel like I am preaching the importance of screening everywhere I go. If you have T1D in your family, you have other autoimmune conditions, and you are seeing kind of this rise in your A1C or in your fasting blood sugar, please ask for autoantibody screening. Or even if you're not seeing these blood sugar changes, I encourage everybody to screen. You can do it through Ask, through TrialNet. You can ask your provider to run the labs. We have information on our website to help you with that. Just remember that sometimes this borderline readings on blood sugar can actually mean early autoimmune activity. When we did the further testing, after I tested positive for the autoantibodies, that's when we found my dysglycemia. So please, if you have any indication that this is you, ask for those autoantibody screenings. And remember that 85% of new onset type 1 diabetes diagnosis, those folks have no family history. So I really believe that screening matters for everyone. Screening is power. It gives you clarity. It gives you time to prepare and not panic. And if autoantibodies are positive, there are guidelines for how we monitor that. It's not just waiting for the shoe to drop. Because we have this positive autoantibody test. There's something that you can do and monitor. And now we have a disease modifying therapy that could be a potential option.
Right. And I was kidding when I said that was my last question, because I thought of something while you were talking. I know you mentioned posting on LinkedIn, but the story is so fascinating hearing about your upcoming appointment. If people want to follow along to see how things are progressing and what you're learning, are you sharing that publicly anywhere? Can people follow you to find out more about how things go?
Yep, absolutely. So on my personal social channels, I've made all of my TZIL posts public so that people can follow along. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook. So please follow along. And if I can inspire people to screen, then my sharing definitely is worth it.
Okay. You've definitely inspired me to seek more information and learn, and hearing that you got your family screened every 3 years, I think is huge. And I think that people need to know that that's an option. So grateful for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you did for your family and being able to share your story with all of us. We really appreciate it, Chris.
Thanks so much, Madison. It's been a great conversation.
All right. Thank you to Chris. That was fascinating. I really hope you all were able to take something from that and you are able to find the resources. Again, we're posting these links in the chat so you can go find out how to access that screening near you. We have all the information out there for you. For now, I want to bring in our next guest, Stacy Sims. Stacy and I have a history because she is the host of a long-running, award-winning podcast called Diabetes Connections. And she is also the author of the World's Worst Diabetes Mom book series. I'll let her tell you about this. She hosts what's called Mom's Night Out. This is an in-person event for moms of children with diabetes. It's held 4 times a year in cities all around the US. And these events, I've been to one, although I'm not a mom, I did talk to the moms here. They're a combination of education, technology, community, cocktails. And I'm adding to this because it's an event of rest. It's a place where moms really get an opportunity to feel heard and seen. And so I am plugging this because it really truly is an incredible event. Stacy's younger child, Benny, was diagnosed with T1D in 2006, just before he turned 2. The family, along with their dog Freckles, lives near Charlotte, North Carolina, which was my last stop before I hopped on a plane to cross the ocean. So, Stacy, I'm so excited to have you here joining us tonight.
Oh, it is
It's
so
so great
good
to
to
see you
see
again.
you. How are you? Oh my
I
gosh.
am doing so well, and I get
Oh.
so excited every time I get to talk about Mom's Night Out because I just know that it's such an incredible and such a necessary space that you've created, and I'm sure it was born out of your own experiences. So I want to start there. Can you tell me a little bit about how you did find community after your son was diagnosed?
Wow. Yeah, we were really, really lucky. So I was working in radio when my son was diagnosed, and coincidentally, I was like the celebrity, local celebrity MC of the JDRF at the time golf tournament. So for several years, I had met families touched by type 1 and I had interviewed them. And so when my son was diagnosed, I had these, I mean, you almost, it's odd to say, but you'll know what I mean, like positive experiences,
Mm.
people who were thriving with type 1
Mm.
diabetes. And I had specific people in my head that I could say, oh, I remember Evan, that happy kid, Maddie, she was running around on the golf course. So I called them up and immediately had people that I could talk to. And then as the weeks went on and the months went on, we went to our first Breakthrough T1D event. It was at the Charlotte Checkers game. It was our professional ice, hockey team, but they had a walk kickoff at the game. And I was able to bring he was not yet 2.5 years old, the kid, and we were able to meet other people. And it's hard to remember back in the day before social media, visualizing what the technology looked like was very difficult. And I was trying to decide about an insulin pump, and did we need that? And did we want that? And what would that look like on my 2-year-old? And to be able to meet these families in person. And there was a little boy who's like, is that an insulin pump? And he's like lifting up his shirt, and the dad's like, what do you need to know? And it brought us together in a way that I didn't even know how much I needed.
Right. And it's so incredible that you had that built in. When you started getting signs of your son maybe developing T1D, did you have an idea because of hosting these events, or was it strange to you that I had been the host of this and then now this connection? What was that?
Yeah, it was classic T1D signs. So we kind of had an indication, but it was slow. Like 1 month, he started really wetting through his diapers, then it got a little better. And the next week, he was super tired. And I didn't know what to do, but I had a pediatrician friend. And again, we had the knowledge of all those other folks. And they were like, this seems really classic. But I called my pediatrician and she said, I've never seen it in anybody under the age of 2. Bring him in and we'll rule it out. And of course, we brought him in and ruled it in. But thank goodness she was proactive and said, she didn't dismiss me at all. But at the time, that practice hadn't seen any child younger than 2 with it.
Wow, that's incredible that you had that experience. And I'm listening to you say, oh, you thought about a pump at 2. I was diagnosed in 97. I was just turned 3, and they were like, absolutely, no way you can put a pump on her. Like, no, there's no, my mom fought for years and years and years. So just even in that gap to see 10 years later to see the advancements is so incredible. So getting back to your story, talking about being a caregiver is why you're here. It's so important though. And I mentioned at the top, when you created this space for moms to have that space to have the need for self-care and to give yourself a break, because someone described diabetes as constantly trying to control the uncontrollable, right? So how do you combat this narrative of having to be the perfect mom and having to do everything right and everything's always in control with the baby? Like, how do you fight that?
It's really, really hard because I think parenting is like that now anyway. As a mom, even dads were like, oh, you have to pack the lunch in a certain way. And if you don't do the bedtime, if you don't watch this show, or maybe no screen time, maybe all the screen time. I mean, nobody knows how to do it anyway anymore.
Right.
And if we ever did. But with diabetes, I think it's particularly almost scary, right? Because if I don't do this right, and I'm completely responsible for my child, what is their life going to look like? If I don't do this perfectly, what will the next month, year look like? And what I found really comforting was, we talked about before social media, my son was diagnosed in 2006. iPhone came along right after that. Social
Mhm.
media followed right after that. So we lived in this kind of little bubble of, I think we're doing okay. We're listening to our endo
Yeah.
before social media really came along to say, maybe you're not doing as well as you think. So I had a really good base of two things: a
Yes.
wonderful endocrinologist and diabetes educator that I could take these questions I had. Hey, I saw this on Facebook. What do you
Mhm.
think? Or I'm
Mhm.
really feeling like we're doing this wrong. Can you help me talk through it? Or I am terrified of this. What
Yes.
are the chances and how do I work through it? That was huge for me. And I also found a local group of mom friends. And I worked
Mhm.
really hard at this. You do it at the Breakthrough T1D walks. You find your people and you walk around. Who lives in my neighborhood? Or, now we can do webinars and find a local group. And we met for coffee every couple of weeks. And you get the real story of what's going
Mhm.
on. You get the whole picture of the chaos,
Yeah.
perhaps. And you get the wonderful stories of, hey, we did this hard thing. I left my kid at a sports practice for the first
Mhm.
time. I had a quick
Mhm.
conversation with the coach and then I ran away. We do these things that we don't necessarily think about posting a big story about, but we'll tell each other about. So I would say the answer for me was
Mhm.
two-part. My healthcare provider, we have a great team, thankfully, and my real life mom friends made a really big difference for me. And my kid is almost 21. We've been doing this for 19 years. I still have days where I'm like, oh, I messed it all up. I didn't do anything right. He's fine.
I think you dropped some great gems there because social media really does add to. There's so much great advice out there, but then there's
Yeah.
also advice on everything, right? It's like you post something and you think you're educating and helping people, and then everyone comes in with, "You're not doing this right. You shouldn't have ripped it off like that. Oh, you hurt." And it's so hard. But having real
Yeah.
people and a real life healthcare provider that you can say, "I watched this TikTok video. What do you think?"
Right, right. But also, your doctor knows your child's body. There may be physiology, there may be, family history. There may be other things going on that person on TikTok with a really straight line and a wonderful,
Right,
routine. Maybe
right.
that's not something that would work for your child or yourself with type 1 because we are individual people.
Right, right, absolutely. So you mentioned your 2-year-old is now 21. So you raised a whole baby. So tell me, what have you learned? Because this is such a tricky balance, right? In raising a child who you can safely send off into the world and who's self-aware and they know how to care for themselves without being defined by T1D. So how did you find that balance? Do you feel like you found it?
I feel like I did find it, Madison. It
Good.
was very difficult. And I have two
Mm,
kids. I have a daughter who's 24 and she's also
okay.
launched, so she's great. Wild. But I think it's very tough. And I still, looking back, I mean, who knows if you did everything wrong or right or whatever. But I will say that allowing us to make mistakes along the way,
Mm,
giving him little bits of independence at the very beginning. I mean, how much independence are you going to give a 2-year-old? Sometimes it's just which arm are we doing the injection in, right? Giving
mhm,
them some choices. And then building on that, um, field trips, sleepovers, uh, diabetes camp, which can lead to regular sleepaway camp as it did to us, big field trips, overnight stuff,
mhm.
sports, but making mistakes along the way
Yeah.
really, I think, helped us realize that we can work this out. He can problem solve.
Mm,
And a good friend of mine gave me some advice early on, which really stuck with me, which is you are raising a child, not a number. If you
mm,
base raising a child with type 1 all around numbers and all around time and range and
yeah,
all around everything you're seeing on your screen in front of you, it's
right,
extremely limiting and stressful for them and for you. So I
yeah,
would say, I always say go for don't go for perfect, go for safe and happy. And I
yeah.
think it's really paid off. And my kids both still talk to me. Everybody's we
That's
still hang
huge.
out.
I promise that is huge, and I absolutely remember thinking that, my mom recently said this to me. I'm getting ready to get married in, like, less than a month, and she looked at my partner, and I just turned 30 as well.
Oh
So
my
I was
God.
diagnosed at 3, I just turned 30, and she looked at my partner and she said to him, "I am so grateful because I feel like I can breathe for the first time." Like, and I realized in that moment, she's like, "I know you're taking care of her." And for the first time, since she launched me, she's like, "I don't feel scared. Like, I know there's somebody else finally after all these years of it being me." And so I just think that, when moms are listening and you hear something like this, it's like you do your best and you are not defining your child by this, but you still have it in the back of your mind. You still have that fear.
Oh,
That's okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Oh, and congratulations to you. That's so exciting, Madison.
Right. How do I make this about me? No, but this is just an interesting
We
story. I
want
thought
to
that
know.
I
We want to
about
know.
moms.
It's
Incredible. Okay, I have just one more question, which probably means two more questions knowing me, but I want to make sure that people in the chat know that Stacy's here to answer your questions. So start dropping them as I try to wrap this up. But we know that you have been an advocate, it sounds like, since before your family was even impacted by type 1 diabetes. And we know that advocacy is such a huge, important pillar of Breakthrough T1D's mission. So what are some other ways that you see advocacy as, or let me rephrase the question. Do you think that advocacy is a necessary part of a caregiver's role?
I really do. And I think it is a part of being a caregiver that kind of sneaks up on you. You're doing it without perhaps realizing you're doing it. Advocacy can mean many things. It can be the wonderful work that Breakthrough T1D is doing on an official advocacy level, right? And at Mom's Night Out, we always have a Breakthrough T1D representative there. If people want to learn more about advocacy, I think it's a fantastic thing to get involved in.
Okay.
Advocacy can also look like, as I said earlier, educating your coach, talking to your school. I mean, we all have to go through everything to either get a 504 or a diabetes medical management plan or whatever it is in your school district. And boy, that's advocacy. Advocacy can mean educating your friends and family. I was playing golf with a woman the other day whose husband was recently diagnosed with type 2, and they are terrified. Talking to them and giving them resources is also a type of advocacy. It's not type 1. It's just as important to get a good education around type 2. So advocacy, I think, can mean many things. It's really important to me to educate and advocate, and it can look different. But I think as a caregiver, you're just doing it on almost a daily basis to kind of, I don't want to say explain about your child, but to educate about their rights, make sure your child knows their rights, make sure your school knows, and to let them know what kind of access is needed and necessary and falls under the law. So I think it's amazing. And without Breakthrough T1D's advocacy, I don't know where we would be. So thank you for that.
For all the mamas watching and dads and caregivers out there, know that your children are seeing you do this, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if you're not telling them that they need to advocate, they are already. Every single day we're advocating for how to be alive and how to live well, but they're watching you, and it's part of that launch, right? Like, we go off into the world, and all of a sudden, how do I know how to fight an insurance company? Oh, I listened to my mom for
Can I just tell you? Yeah. It's such a wonderful thing to bring up. And we also, when my son was very small, we don't have full-time school nurses in the elementary schools here. So I would, it sounds silly, Madison, but we would kind of play act. Like, what would you do? He's 5 years old, 6 years old. What would you do if there was a substitute teacher who wouldn't let you go to the nurse or didn't understand diabetes? Like, what would you say? And it's a lot easier to play act with an elementary school kid than like a middle schooler or a high schooler. But these are some things you can kind of go through with them and play what if, and that teaches them advocacy without even calling it that.
Yeah, exactly. So important. And I'm so grateful for you for joining us here tonight, for being an incredible mom and helping all the other ones out there by sharing your story and giving those spaces. Like I said, I took something from it as someone who's not a mother going to Mom's Night Out. So it was really, truly an incredible experience. And I'm going to check the chat to see if we have anything here for you. I'm looking. So many people joining us who have been T1Ders for a long, long time.
Yeah,
really
respect, man.
Yes.
We do have a lot of women with type 1 at these Mom's Night Out events, which I think is incredible because I feel like I've learned so much from folks who've lived with this for a long time. And you were joking about like getting a pump in the 90s. You meet people who were diagnosed in the 50s and the 60s. They're like, pump.
Yeah. And they're talking about how they used to do it. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean pee on the stick? And then how would you
chemistry
know?
sit in the bathroom.
Yeah. So it's incredible. Anyway, Stacey, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Special thanks again to Stacey and also to Chris Dunn, who joined us earlier in tonight's session, for really helping us see T1D in new ways. And then, of course, as always, I want to say a very special thank you to our sponsors, Abbott, Dexcom, Ford, Insulet, Marshalls, Medtronic, Novo Nordisk, Sanofi, Tandem, Vertex, and Xeris. You can learn much more about our national partners who make the Breakthrough T1D Community Summit possible and the latest in technology and all T1D management at breakthrough-t1d.org/T1D-community/summits. Want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you all for joining us throughout the year at our community summits. We're so grateful for your participation, and we hope to see you soon. I hope you scan that QR code I showed you earlier, because we hope to see you soon as advocates yourself. Have a great night.